On behalf of the Dallas Stars, I want to say good morning and welcome to the Glen Gulutzan Introductory Press Conference, and welcome to all our fans watching across the globe on Victory Plus. As a reminder, please silence your cell phones. When the question portion is upon us, you'll have two mic holders on either side of the room. Please raise your hand to grab the mic. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Stars GM Jim Nill.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody. Before I get started, and I just asked Glenn, I wanted to introduce Nicole, but I don't think she's here yet. She would make it, so if she comes in later. But I wanted to welcome her to Dallas. I also want to acknowledge some staff. It's been a busy 3-4 weeks. We just finished the draft. We just finished free agency. We've got the assistant coaching staff here. They've all done a great job. I want to acknowledge them. And a special shout out to Daryl Ray. I believe Daryl's here. Is he hiding somewhere? He is hiding. There he is. Yeah. Congratulations, Hockey Hall of Fame. We haven't had a chance to welcome you. What a great honor. I'm excited today to announce and formally introduce Glen Gulutzan. I'm going to take you through a timeline, a process that we began 4 weeks ago when I met with most of you after our playoff season ended. The first step was to build a profile, to find the individual who met all the requirements, because this is a unique opportunity, a unique situation. This isn't a team that's was falling apart. It's not a team that's rebuilding, and so it's really important that we build the right profile to find the right individual that met those requirements that we were looking for. We interviewed numerous coaches at all levels, and in the end, the process kept coming back to Glen. It just kept coming back to him. Speaking with people he worked with, he worked for, all I ever heard about is he'll go through the wall for you. He's organized, he's professional, he cares about people, and he'll go through the wall for you. His resume and experience over the years has prepared him for this opportunity. I always talk about, you know, it's one thing to have success, but you got to go through tough times. Everybody does, and it's those tough times when you find out who you are, and that's what Glen has done. And he's made himself a better coach because of that, and a better person because of it. And I'm going to share with you one of my interviews with Glen, and it was probably the interview that I knew that he was the guy. We had just lost in the playoffs to Edmonton, who he was with, and we were devastated. I met with all you then and stuff, and if you didn't know it, it's devastating when you lose in the playoffs. You get that far, it's devastating. Well, Glen goes to the finals, they go around farther than us, and it's even more devastating. It is tough, it is hard. Here they lose out, they got to fly back home, and the next day I'm calling him and getting permission from Edmonton to interview him, and I need to get him down ASAP. He agrees to come down, and we had an interview, and I was so impressed for a guy that was devastated after you lose, how he conducted himself, how he spoke about situations. That really impressed me, because I know we're going to go through that, and he's got the scars because of it, and it was so impressive how he conducted himself, how he talked about his team, the situation. Not easy to do when you just lose. You go to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's not easy to do, and in the end, that was the thing that really brought me to him, and I was very impressed, really impressed. The job resume, you're a head coach in the NHL. It's X and O's, it's strategies, it's game plans. We all know that. But ultimately, in the end, character matters. Character matters. With your team, and most importantly, with your head coach. Your head coach is your leader. I look at Glen, and ultimately what brought me back to him was his leadership. His ability to have a team-first mentality. You win and lose as a team. Ability to build teams, ability to connect with people, and to collaborate. And even more important, to make players accountable. And I really believe that Glen has all those attributes. So it's my pleasure to introduce Glen, the next head coach. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, geez, there's some familiar faces for me here. Some close friends that are here for me, which is great to see. Never lost contact with the people in Dallas, and we certainly enjoyed our time in Texas. I'll get this out of the way. I want to certainly thank Tom and Jim for bringing me back. It's been 12 years since I've been here before, if anybody's counting. And hey, this is the summer. This is the summer, and I sincerely mean that. I'm very appreciative to be back. But this is the summer. We've been to the, I've been to the Stanley Cup final, and Dallas is. We've been to the Final Four here in Dallas, and we all know what's played out here. But at some point, you got to decompress a little bit. So I'm going to tell you a little story. I didn't know this, but through my interview, and I'm kind of piecing it together a little bit. So 12 years ago, Jim actually sent me on a reconnaissance mission, and that was up through Western Canada, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. And he didn't tell me till about a week ago that he was bringing me back and that the mission was over. So
all expenses paid, right?
Yes, all expenses paid through Western Canada. So the whole time I was up there, I thought I was heading to Winnipeg next. So so I'm back, and I'm ecstatic to be back. I'm ecstatic to be back. I know we have assistant coaches here. Neil Graham, we have on board. I've known Neil. Neil and I had great conversations. Obviously, we're Texas Star alumni. He's done a fantastic job. Naz and I have spoke. He's an old vet in the league, like I've become over the past few years. And Reeser, I don't take this, but he's even a more vet than us. He's even a little deeper. And then obviously we got Chris and Patty that are there too. And so I'm just ecstatic to be back. I know some of the questions, certainly they're going to come from everybody here. How does it feel to be back? But I'm prepared for those. It's been 12 years. Geez, I could give you the Edmonton resume. 5 head coaches in 7 years in Edmonton. I got to work with some great names, some great coaches. John Tortorella, Ken Hitchcock, Dave Tippett, Jay Woodcroft, Chris Knobloch, great young coach. So I've got to work with lots of people, Mike Sullivan. So all those things have added up to kind of bring me back here, and I'm just ecstatic to be back. It's been a roller coaster. It's a little surreal. A month ago I was on the other side cursing the team out when they beat us in game 1, and now I'm sitting here. So, but for me, it still feels like home, so it's an easy adjustment.
And with that, we'll open it up to questions. Please raise your hand for the question mic. And as a reminder, please address the person you're going to ask the question to. We'll start with Mike Heika.
Hey, Glenn. How different is this team than the team you took over last time? And like most coaches, when they make a coaching change, you don't get to walk into a roster like that. So what is this like? What is the opportunity?
Yeah. And I'll go back a little bit with you, Hikes, and then I'll get shorter answers. But Hikes and I used to see him walking in Edmonton, and we'd have some chats there. I'm a stroller at night, especially in the playoffs when the stress is high, and I'd see Hikes walking out there. So I pointed out some strategic places he could maybe walk in Edmonton. So this roster is tremendous. What I love about this roster, you don't get these chances. Usually, you're starting from the bottom or rebuild. What's different is, I was kind of at the end of an era when I first was here in 2011 and 12. Obviously the team was owned by the league then. So there was a bit of a transition period. The team now, the team that Jim's built and Jenks and Whitey, this is a real team. Final Four 3 years in a row. This is a real team. I love the depth, Hikes, of this team, the depth, because if you're going to go all the way, you need depth, and you guys have witnessed it. I grew up that way a little bit in Edmonton the last 7 years. We didn't have it, and then we did, and it's propelled them to 2 Stanley Cup finals. Played Florida. You can see their progression over the 3 years, and just adding those layers at the end with the Marchands and those types of players. That depth helps. It's here in Dallas. I love the D. I love the goaltending. You got studs on D, studs in net, and depth and strength up the middle. All the pieces are here. We just have to make sure we're pushing this thing 1 degree. I mean, this isn't a 20-degree league. The team had over 100 points. You're not going to come in here and reinvent the wheel. But if we can push this thing in certain areas 1 degree, I think that's the biggest. That's going to be our biggest challenge as a coaching staff.
Glenn, Stephen Hawkins with the AP. You're talking, obviously, it's been 12 years. You talked
Yep.
about that. The conversations and the interviews you had with Jim this time, how much did you reflect back on your previous meetings with him 12 years ago when he basically told you, you're not our man right now? And how are you different as a coach from then to now?
Well, I'll be fully transparent. I've had meetings with Tom and Jim, and my last meeting with Jim, actually, if you want to go down the memory lane, Jim and I spent about 2.5, 3 weeks together at the end of that season in 2013, and we talked and we went through players, and there was a little bit of relationship formed. Now, our last meeting was, hey, I'm not going to renew you, hand in your keys, but at the end of the day, Jim was right. Jim was right. This is a league where you've got to get some wounds on you, some scars, like Jim talked about. You got to go through the process. You got to gain experience, and so I reflect on those conversations and that time, and even one I had with Tom Gullardi at the airport when I was actually flying to Vancouver to interview with the Canucks, just about how much experience matters. And you don't realize it at the time when you're a young guy. You just don't. But once you start working with veteran guys and stay in the league, it didn't take me long to realize that's what I needed. So if you're not learning and growing, you're moving backwards. So since that day, I've been trying to push myself forward.
Glenn, Robert Tiffin, D Magazine. What would you, kind of a follow-up to that question, if you could go back and tell yourself 12 years ago one thing that you've learned about coaching and about yourself since then, what one thing would you choose?
Well, I'll answer this question, and because I was expecting, you're expecting questions. I've done these things before, and you're expecting the questions. What have you learned from that? What could you tell your younger self? What I would tell my younger self is go through the scars again, go through the experiences, get kicked around a little bit, learn the league, because there's a lot of people talk about, and I said this in my interview, lots of people talk about confidence and where confidence comes from. You can't just hand it to somebody. You can't go up to a player and say, hey, you're good. You kind of have to build confidence, and you build it in the way you act and what you do and what you value and your experiences, right? So your experiences, all through that way, all the scars, get kicked around, pick yourself up, win a game, lose a game, over a period of time, work with people, keep learning. That's experience, but that's where confidence comes from, right? Because you're learning. That's where it comes from. If you're prepared, and the more prepared you are, that's what builds confidence, right? I said, it doesn't matter, if you got kids in there, they're writing a test. If you don't study, you don't put in the work, you don't have to struggle a little bit. You're probably not that confident when you write the test, but if you put in the work, you're probably okay to go write it. So I put in the work. I got kicked around. I got the scars on me. Certainly I'm ready now. That's what I tell the young guy. Go through it, get kicked around a bit, and then show up again.
Hey, Coach. Ivan Dawkins, BS3 Network. Welcome to Dallas. Welcome back to Dallas. So you mentioned that Jim was right 12 years ago. Why is he right today?
Oh, great question. Great question. Because of the scars. Because of the scars. I've been there. I've checked the boxes, right? We've won. We didn't win the Stanley Cup. Been to the finals twice with the Stanley Cup. Coached some of the best players that are ever going to play this game. Worked with them closely. Built relationships with different people throughout the games. Worked with coaches. 3 possible Hall of Fame coaches that you learn from, and you look at and you can say, I can take this, I can take that. So all those little experiences help you. I've got over 100 playoff games now, or around 100 playoff games. You kind of lose track, but those playoff games you might as well be 5-1 because everything is dialed in. You've got to make adjustments. I was a younger guy. I didn't make many adjustments. I knew one way to play. All right, I knew one way to play. You're self-taught. You're self-learned. Now you bring in all that experience. You check a lot of boxes. So players are the most important part of this game, no question. It's not us coaches, but you got to learn how to deal with them. You got to learn how to motivate them. You got to deal with star players. You got to deal with guys that are getting 7-8 minutes a night. So you have to deal with all those situations. And the guy 12 years ago, he never dealt with them. This guy's dealt with them for the last 12. So that's probably the biggest difference. I've checked a lot of boxes.
Hey Glenn, Leah Simakopoulos, Dallas Morning News. Welcome back. How would you describe your coaching style and the systems that you would like to bring here when you get started?
Yeah, you know, I work with Mike Sullivan, and we used to chuckle because every coach, we'd watch press conferences, and every new coach that was hired, we'd say, well, we want to play a fast, upbeat style of game, and then we'd say, as opposed to what? You know, like we want to play slow and methodical and whatever. So what's changed with me is I'm going to look at our roster deep with our coaches. We've got great coaches here, and I know that throughout the league. We're going to take a little deep dive in here. I'm not coming in. Listen, I played every system. I've worked for 5 different coaches. I played for every system, and every system has won a cup. Vegas' system won a cup. The way Florida we all seen has won a cup. All right, everyone's been able to take it. We're going to put together a system collaboratively with that group that's what's best for us. What's best for us to push us. Now, I've got a couple tweaks in mind. I'm not going to mention them, but at the end of the day, we're going to put something together that's best for the Dallas Stars and the personnel we have, and that's probably one of the things that's changed with me. I only had one way to play. There's not just one way to play. We're going to put it together that helps our group.
Kevin Sherrington, Dallas Morning News. Jim, you've been to the conference finals 3 times in a row. Is it finals or bust?
Well, it's easy for me to sit here and say yes, but I get too much respect for the game. It is so hard to win in pro sports, and I got a lot of respect for the game. I've done a lot of winning in my career. I've done a lot of losing in my career, but that's our goal, is to win the Stanley Cup, and we're going to do the best we can to accomplish that.
There was also a report in Canada that you had explored maybe hiring Glenn in another capacity before you made the change. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I have not heard. Yeah, stay off Twitter.
Hi, Glenn. Mike Ducey from Fox 4. I was going to ask you a similar question to what Kevin just asked Jim, and that is, given the way this club is constructed, would anything less than winning a Stanley Cup next year be a disappointment in your mind?
It always is. It always is. But there's only one team that can win, right? There's only one team that can win. So, again, that's the goal. That's what we're going for. For some teams in this league, it's not the realistic goal, and that's reality. I think there's only 8 teams, 7 teams that realistically can win the Stanley Cup every year, and Dallas is one of them. If you ask any guy in the league, Dallas is one of them. So I'm sure whatever happened, winning the Cup would be great. I'm sure if we fell short in Game 7 in overtime, it's devastating. I've already been there. But the goal is to win the Cup, and we're one of the teams that can. So I don't believe in saying win the Cup, it's a failure, because you're setting yourself up because of how hard it is. I believe you build so that we can win the Cup. That's where I'm going to try to keep this team's mindset, because listen, in Edmonton last year, you guys can look it up online, it was Cup or bust, and we didn't get it. All right, so at the end of the day, I want to keep focused on a little bit the process here to win the Cup, and then we'll see where it goes. But we're one of the 7 or 8 that can win it, absolutely.
Jim, Daniel Stev at 33 Sports. I'm curious, you've been around and you've obviously made a lot of decisions throughout your career right here in the back.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Jim specifically. Sorry, Jim.
I found you. Yeah,
I've got to make myself more available. Jim, you've made a lot of decisions throughout your career. I'm curious, was there an added sense of difficulty given the situation, going to 3 straight Western Conference Finals and looking for that specific profile that could potentially get you over the hump?
Well, it's definitely difficult. You know, you make a decision like this, they're not easy. You know, first of all, my responsibility is what's best for the team, but there's also people involved, and so you make those decisions. But in the end, I knew this was something we had to do, and then we started the process and went from there. And it was a good process. There's a lot of good people out there, a lot of good people, and like I said, we're just very fortunate that Glenn was available, and like I said, we're very comfortable with this decision.
Question is for Glenn.
Yeah.
Savannah Humeler, D210 Sports. One thing that has remained the same in the Stars locker room is Jamie Benn. You've obviously coached him before. Can you just talk about your relationship with him and how you plan to build that as you're coming back to Dallas here?
Yeah, I think that's one advantage that I have, is that I've kept in touch with Jamie over the years. He's actually the one player that's on this roster that I had coached. I actually coached him in Austin, and in the playoffs, and then obviously 2 years here in Dallas. So he's the one player, and I've stayed in contact. You know, it's easy to stay in contact. He's a great human being. Obviously, I coached his brother too, Jordy in both those places. So, you know, every time the league's small, every time you run into these guys, you make contact, keep it together. I'd see him, or you chat, or sit down. So I've always maintained that relationship, and the beauty is that relationship's maintained because certainly I respect Jamie and everything he's done. I loved him as a player, and now I get to coach him back. For me, the biggest thing with Jamie is going right back to Austin. Let's finish this thing off.
Glenn, so you've beaten the Stars twice now in the playoffs. What is the secret to that, and can you fix it?
You know, one thing I'd like to do here, and it starts from day one, is, you know, you get to the Final Four, which Dallas has been there, and I've been there here with Edmonton the last couple years, and actually even prior to that. You get to that point, and it really becomes almost hand-to-hand combat when you get to the finals. The game changes, and any player is going to tell you the game changes over. It's different from 82, and then it's different starting the first round of the playoffs. But boy, you get to the finals, and you're playing in there. It becomes, I would say, to our players, it becomes everything your dad used to tell you. You know, when you played, you guys have hockey dads in here. You know, you got to back check, you got to forward check, you got to shoot the puck, you got to get to the net, you got to win the battle, you got to, you know, it doesn't become X's and O's. It really, you got to make some adjustments because some teams do things a certain way, but boy, the adjustments become smaller and smaller because it's hand-to-hand combat. So what I'd like to do here too is right from the start of 82 is we just got to up our physicality a little bit, 1 degree through 82 games, and because you can't just turn that switch on in game 83. You have to build it in. So we're gonna build it in, and we're not gonna be running around. We've got too good of a players, but there has to be a little element of physicality. The way we forecheck is gonna change, just a little bit, so that we're better prepared in the playoffs for game 80 through and on. So and that's something that we can do here. It's just 1 degree. Wherever you put your energy in this league, that's where you're going to get a little bit of a pop, and we're going to put a little energy there, and we're going to ask a little more from our guys. But that's sports, right? That's sports, and I think that'll help us, right? That's going to help us. So that's one thing I'd like to do here is just add that little bit of a layer here, and it has to start through 82 because there's no light switch.
And you can do that without changing personnel.
Well, yeah, you can, because you're asking a little bit more from each guy, right? And listen, this is a coaching thing, and those coaches back there know this. If we're going to say to Robbie, hey, go run and hit guys and have your stick in the air and crash and bang, we're just going to be back checking. We're going to get good at back checking doing that, but we're going to ask for a little more hand-to-hand combat from everybody, starting from the top to the bottom, because it's a 1 degree league. It's not a 10 degree league. So we just need to up the ante a little bit and put our energy there.
Glenn, I know there's still, Jim mentioned yesterday, there's still maybe another person you might bring on your staff, but for the folks that you do have right now, is the plan for Neil to kind of take over that forward kind of power play role, or have you had a chance to kind of hash out what those roles might be for next year?
We did. I talked to both those guys, and I can tell you, I'll start with PK. Naz is certainly there. That thing's a pain in the butt. So obviously that's his baby. That's his thing. And the D, Kramer, power play, and the forwards, that's going to be his baby. If there is somebody else coming in, it'll be in a lesser role, because I believe, when I worked, I had the autonomy. I ran the penalty kill in Vancouver for for years, and then I went to Edmonton around the power play. So I had complete autonomy to do what I wanted. I had good coaches that let me do it. I'm going to do the same thing with both those guys. Smart guys, they're in the NHL for a reason. And if there's anything I can do to help, we'll all help each other, but we're all helping each other in all ways. That's the way it has to be. So yeah, to answer your question, yes.
Ivan Dawkins, BS3 Network. Good morning, Mr. Neal. Congratulations again on your three-peat. It's not the first time there's been talk of a three-peat in Dallas, but the first time it's been accomplished. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Was continuity a factor in your decision, particularly with someone who knows the organization, knows the city, some of the staff, some of the members of the media, the great members of the media? Was continuity a factor for you?
Well, it wasn't it's a factor. Does it come into play? If it's there, yes. But I just wanted to make sure I had the right coach for the right situation. And it's a bonus that he does have continuity. So it does come into play. There's familiarity there with some players, just knowing the staff. So it comes into play, but it wasn't the number one factor in making the decision, no.
Hey, Glenn. What has it been like to coach a player like McDavid or Draisaitl, and does that help you as you come in and have a ranting in here? And it seems like a different coaching skill to be at that level.
Yeah, it's gonna, it's gonna go down as one of the, I told both those young men, one of the treasures of my life to have coached those types of players. But I had the Sedins in Vancouver, who were elite hockey minds. Connor and Leon certainly elite hockey minds and players, as everyone here, a hockey fan, would know. You have to collaborate a little bit. You have to collaborate a little bit more. That you have to take into consideration what they do well and what they think, and it's a work-life balance, really, is what it is with those top guys. But you do have to form a relationship, right? And any good relationship starts with trust. So you do have to know what you're talking about too, because they can filter pretty quickly. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to do with all your teams, all your players, is build some trust in there. Trust that you're trying to help them. Trust you know what you're doing. And then once that gets going, you can really be collaborative. And to coach them was, to be honest with you, they made me better, because their minds are so elite that it made me better. It challenged me as a coach to step to the plate every day when you had to come in and bring something forward to them. So there's growth there for a coach, I'll tell you.
We'll do 2 or 3 more questions. We'll go back to Kevin.
Glenn, it's been a while since you've been a head coach. Was there a feeling in your mind that whether this was going to ever happen again? And did you have to remind Jim that he fired you?
Yeah, I didn't have to remind him. I remembered. But certainly how should I put this? I said this in my interview with Jim. I was never a guy, assistant, head, assistant, American League, wherever I started, I was never a guy. I like to be where, I was talking with Neil Graham about this. I like to be where my boots are. I kind of want to live in the now. If you're chasing all the time, I sometimes thought, you always catch your mind wandering. I thought, oh, geez, if I got this job or if I got that job. But I really actually loved my job. I loved my job in Edmonton. I loved my job in Calgary. I loved it in Vancouver. I loved it here in Austin. It didn't really change. I just like to be where my boots are.
We'll go to Savannah.
Glenn, one big thing off the ice is obviously your support system at home. Can you just talk about your family, how excited they are to be in Dallas, and just the support over your career? Yeah,
well, one thing that happens when you're not here for 12 years, you lose all your kids, because I got my last one graduating, and so I don't know who's going to be here other than my wife, Nicole. And now, when your last kid leaves the house, you're with your wife, you got to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now? So I am figuring that out, but they've been with me forever. They've had to move. I've had a daughter that's moved in grade 2, grade 4, grade 7, grade 10, and grade 11, right? So she's lived this NHL thing, right? I got 4 of them that have lived it. I will tell you, I'm going to finally tell Jim, and I know I can give him long-winded answers, but it's only one press conference, not July 4th yet. But I didn't tell Jim. I have a daughter that's coming to Hillsborough to play JUCO softball. So I knew that 6 months ago. So when all of a sudden this lined up, I was like, oh boy, I better get this job.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Glenn. We appreciate your time. With that said, we're going to do a quick photo op once we move the table. After that, we have lunch outside, and Jim and Glenn and the other coaches are available for interviews if you'd like. So thank you for coming.